Today we're going to have a study on the Ten Commandments as we find them in Exodus chapter 20. I remember as a boy, my dad told me the quickest way to find the Ten Commandments is to remember these two numbers, 20 and 10. Exodus chapter 20, 10 commandments are found in chapter 20. So Exodus 20, 10. 20 is the chapter, 10 commandments are the commandments. We're going to go over them quickly. This isn't going to be a long, drawn-out study, but try to answer a few questions and talk about what they involve. The Ten Commandments were kind of a big deal in our country for a while. There were schools that had posters or plaques of the Ten Commandments listed, and then there were the atheists and the agnostics and the secularists who were furious that we would put the Ten Commandments in our schools. And sometimes they sued to try to get the Ten Commandments taken down. And and not just our schools, but in places of government, courts even, the Ten Commandments are there. But the people that don't really have any respect for God, they hate that. They don't like the idea of any commandments ever being displayed anywhere. So, obviously, you can't erase them out of the Bible. And they were given to Moses. Moses is called the lawgiver. And it's in chapter 20 of Exodus where God speaks to Moses. He and the Israelites are gathered around Mount Sinai. And it's a big deal. The smoke is pouring out of the mountain, and there's noise like a trumpet, and things are happening, and everybody's getting scared. And then God speaks. And he starts listing these commandments, starting with, in verse 2, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall have no other gods before me. Number one commandment, have no other gods before me. I am to be your supreme love. Well, they lived in a time of tremendous idolatry. Every nation had its own god. Every nation had its own name for its god. Every nation had their own particular idols and wood and stone carvings that were supposed to represent their God, every nation, that is, except Israel. And he would not allow them to make any kind of a engraving or artistic depiction of him. He was to be the invisible God, which made Israel incredibly unique among the nations. And we Christians are still that way today. We don't have a little statue that we go and pray to. Our God is invisible, and there's nothing that can represent him by way of a statue. So, no other gods before me, and that gets on to number 2, you shall not make for yourself a carved image. Well, if you look at archaeology, there were all kinds of carved idols and images of different gods in those days. But God says, you're not going to do that. Your religion is your relationship is with an invisible God who's above every other God, because every other God is not really a God at all. So notice these first 2 commandments are all related to God and Israel's relationship with him. They're not related to people, really. They're related to, I'm God, I'm your God, and I am to be number one in your life, and you don't carve idols. Number 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Well, he's still continuing on with the idea of how you're going to relate to me, and that is you're not going to use my name in vain. You're not going to use it as a curse word, a swear word, or even in a vain, foolish fashion. It bothers me to see people who say, oh, my God, all the time, because you're using God's name in vain. It's just an expression that means, wow, look at this. Oh, my God. Well, oh, my God should be used when you're talking to God. Oh, my God, I love you. Oh, my God, I need your help. Not, I just saw an orange cat cross the road. I almost hit him. Oh, my God. Well, that's not the proper use of God. I'll never forget. And he follows it by saying this, the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. So you are going to be guilty if you take God's name in vain. I'll never forget. I don't do this often. That is, rebuke people that I don't know. But one time I was playing tennis, and there was a kid playing with another kid in the court next to us. And he was using the GD word, using God's name in vain all over the place in a very terrible way. Mm-hmm. I couldn't take it anymore. And I walked over to him. I said, do you know the Bible says you don't take God's name in vain, and he will not hold you guilt-free if you take his name in vain? And that stopped him, at least for that tennis match. He may have gone on to do it after that, but he knew I wasn't very happy with it. But I was trying to make a point to him. And there was another case I can remember where I did rebuke an adult. He was working with me at UPS years and years ago. I worked for UPS for a short while as a truck unloader. And this guy worked with me, and he proclaimed to be a Christian. But he cursed like a sailor. I mean, he just cursed all the time. And finally, I said to him, how can you call yourself a Christian and use God's name in vain and curse like you do? Don't you know the Christians aren't supposed to do that? Well, he took it well. He didn't get mad or anything, and just said something kind of meaningless like, oh, I don't know. I just used to doing it or whatever. But about 2 weeks later, he came back to me. He said, well, I want you to know I haven't used God's name in vain in the last 2 weeks. So apparently that had made an impression on him. Mm. God says, don't take my name in vain. Mm. Next commandment, and again, these are all related to God. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Mm. 1 day out of the week. For the Jews, that would be Saturday, starting Friday night when it gets dark, and running through Saturday until it gets dark again. Mm. Then by Saturday night, once it's dark, the Sabbath is off. The Jews counted the night as the beginning of the day. That's why in the Genesis 1 it says the evening and the morning are the first day. Mm. So the day started with the evening. Go ahead. You're wanting to say something.
I wanted to, say something about the one you were explaining about not taking God's name in vain, or
right.
kind of, saying it inappropriately when and where it didn't match.
Yeah.
And I was like thinking about what the Bible says in Proverbs, that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom.
Exactly.
So when we apply wisdom in the things that we do, having a fear of God, which means respecting God, not, trembling every time God's name is mentioned. You'll be like, oh,
yeah.
It's like respecting God. So when we have that respect for God, knowing who he is, that he is Almighty, who created heavens and earth,
and he holds your life in his hands. I mean, your health, your finances, your marriage, your very being is all in his hands. Yeah. You should respect someone that's got that much control and authority over you. Mm. All right, well, good point, and exactly right. Okay, so let's move on quickly. We don't want to take too long, but God does say 6 days you labor and you work, but on the seventh day you rest. And the idea seems to be you take time for God on the seventh day. Next one, and starting with verse 12, things change. Because up till now, everything is about God and how you relate to him. It's all about God. And suddenly now it's about how you treat people. Well, when you think about it, and the next 6 commands are all about people and how you treat them. So when you think about it, the first 4 are all about God, and the next 6 are all about man and people. It reminds me of what Jesus said when they asked him, what's the greatest commandment of the law? He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Mm. So that's all about God. Love him with all you've got. Mm. And then he says, and by the way, there's another one, the second one, which is love your neighbor as yourself. Well, that's all about people. Your neighbor, people you relate to. When he says your neighbor, he doesn't just mean someone living next door to you, but he means people that you relate to and have dealings with. Love them the way you would yourself, which is pretty powerful because we love ourselves a whole lot. And when Jesus tells us you love others the way you love yourself, well, that's really saying something. So he starts with the section 2, or you might say part B of the 10 Commandments, verse 12, with commandment number 5. honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long on the land, upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. So honor your parents. Starts right there. Well, if you can't honor your parents, who can you honor, or who should you honor? I mean, number one, really, for us is to show respect and concern and take care of our parents. Sometimes I've heard of people who basically forsake their parents when they become adults, and they just go off and live their own life. They don't call them, they don't relate to them, they don't go visit them. And in some cases, when the parents are struggling, they don't help them out financially. They just, well, they were my parents when I was a kid. I needed them, but now they're on their own, and I'm on my own. Jesus said, you honor those parents. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. Our parents are very important because we don't really agree, sometimes with all the things they say, because when we're growing up, we have our own ideas on how things go, especially when you're a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
So that does not mean we should, hate on our parents. We should love our parents. When we were little kids, they carried us and, protected us, made sure that we didn't stick our fingers in fire or burning in our stove.
Right.
And we didn't fall off our bed and, wound ourselves. And they carried you, they nurtured you, they, even from the womb, your mother, loved and they nurtured you and they carried you, gave birth to you. So she cared that much. And, one thing I want to say is like, because of that, you should just center your mind on that. Even as you're growing up, they helped you out. And when they are getting older, in Africa, we don't leave them alone. We care for them.
Yeah.
We, we make sure that we carry them,
Yeah.
not carrying them with your hands, but you care for them.
Right.
If you have, a financial ability, you help them financially, and at the same time, make sure that you meet their needs when they can no longer walk. I remember my stepmom is in my book, that is selling on Amazon, When Destiny Calls, is the title. I mentioned, I kind of know that there was a time when I was growing up as a little girl that I noticed that my mom, who was up and doing, taking care of me, wasn't doing much anymore. I stepped up as a kid. I started selling anything my hands could lay in the village, going all over the place, door to door, knocking on every door that can open and sell things and collect money. And then we could use that money and go buy food and be able to eat. So that was like helping my mom when she could no longer help herself much. She was, ill and all of that. So I think that is very important. I think that is what God is emphasizing for us to do. Honor them, love them, care for them. I know that in America there are some facilities or amenities or anything, that can help in that area. If you can pay for it and take them to, call it home, that will also be okay. But if you cannot afford it, I think it's better to keep them close to you and take care of them.
Yeah. And that is a basic requirement that almost every society recognizes, although not every human being does it. But almost all societies recognize you have a debt to your parents and you need to be taking care of them. As we move along in the other commandments, the people commandments, you shall not murder. Well, that's pretty obvious. You're not going to go killing people. The next one, you shall not commit adultery. Again, there's almost no society that approves of adultery. There are some that approve of multiple marriages, but they don't consider that adultery. They consider that multiple marriage. And that was even the case in the Old Testament, although by the New Testament times, Paul said, if you're going to have an elder, appoint an elder in the church, make sure he's the husband of one wife, not 5 wives or 10 wives.
Yeah.
But we would not consider King Solomon with his 1,000 women, 700 wives and 300 concubines, as an adulterer. He just had a lot of wives and concubines. So that was the custom. But anyway, adultery, clearly wrong, clearly a sin. You shall not steal. Again, what society would approve of stealing? There's a law against stealing in America. You go up to Canada and you try to steal, you find out they have a law. You go over to Africa and try to steal, they have a law. I mean, everywhere. There's no place I know of on the whole earth that doesn't have a law against stealing. And if you steal and get caught, you go to jail. And then the next one, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Basically, it's talking about lying in court, but a lot of people have extended that to the point of, well, you just don't lie, bear false witness. And then finally, you shall not covet. Now, that's a kind of a tricky one for some people because covet is really an emotion. It's like you look at your neighbor, he's got a beautiful car, and you say, man, I wish I had that car. And a lot of people think, well, if you just look at your neighbor's car and wish you had it, you've sinned, you've broken a commandment. I personally think it's a little stronger than that. I think it's the idea of wanting something somebody else has to the point where you would love to take it away, and you would if you could. So it's not just saying, boy, my neighbor's got a nice car. But I wonder if there's a way I could get it from him and take it from him. It says you don't covet your neighbor's house, nor his wife, nor his servants, his ox, his donkey, anything that is your neighbor's. You just don't covet it. Whatever he's got, he's got. God gave to him. Whatever you've got, you've got. If you need more, ask God about it. Work hard. But don't go around trying to take things away from your neighbor. Yeah. So you shall not covet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Mostly, if you listen to so many people who are teaching us or teaching on internet or anywhere in the churches, you will hear, people tell you if you work hard, you will make it. And because that your neighbor that you are looking at worked hard, or that person that you're looking at, you want to, covet or take over or whatever, that you're looking at worked hard to have what he or she, has, and taking it over by force or taking it over by, fire.
Or trickery.
Or trickery by deceive or by deceit, kind of is not right. Bible condemns it. And at the same time, this is so important. And they will tell you, work hard, be consistent, you will get there. And at the same time, if you put in the work and you may not really take off immediately, but keep at it, it will take off.
My wife, Benedicta, has led one of the most amazing and dramatic lives of anyone I've ever known. In her childhood, she was forced to quit school and sell food from door to door just to enable her and her elderly stepmom to survive. At the age of 14, she went to work for a man as a housemaid. He required her to cook, clean, do farm work, and serve as a nanny to his children. She was forced to get up at 4 a.m. to begin her duties, but worse than her enormous workload was the fact that the man for whom she worked had a hot temper and frequently beat her savagely. At the age of 20, with no support and very little money, she moved to the huge city of Lagos. In 1 year there, she experienced a terrible sickness, and at one point she lay on the floor of her room so weak she could not move, and even her desperate prayers involved only the moving of her lips. She had no strength to pray aloud. At last she became comatose and suddenly found herself in a beautiful place where an angel gave her a tour of heaven. After a while, she found herself back in her tiny room where she sobbed for a long time, knowing that all her problems and her sickness were still with her. Eventually, Benedicta recovered, and a few years later, she attended an evangelistic meeting held by an American evangelist, and that evangelist was, of course, me. We met. We developed a telephone courtship after I returned home, and eventually I returned to Nigeria and married her, after which we began to minister together as a team, both in evangelism and in an unusual YouTube ministry called Beat Diabetes. Benedicta has written her life story in an autobiography titled When Destiny Calls. You can get this book either as an ebook or a paperback on Amazon. Just go to their website and type Benedicta Pollock in the search engine. You'll be amazed, blessed, and inspired as you read of the faithfulness of God in the life of a girl and then a woman who learned to trust in and call on God.